Hey everyone, it's your boy back with another recording. So today we're going to be looking at the origins of the Cold War. So the goal for class today is to understand the origins of the Cold War and how it started. This is also the first notes we will be taking for our brand new unit. So go ahead, pull out your notebooks, make sure you have something to write with, and we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so first thing you need to do, make sure to write this down. It's called the Iron Curtain. So remember, way back in World War II, we knew that the Allies consisted of the United States, England, France, a few other countries. One of those other countries was the USSR, or the Soviet Union. Okay, the Soviet Union is what we today know as Russia, right? So at the end of the war, we know that Berlin was captured by the Russians or the Soviets. If you remember that graphic, right, both the Americans and the Soviets got to Berlin around the same time. Soviets got there a little bit earlier, right? But at the end of the war, we have two people coming out victorious, or two countries, the United States and the USSR. These two countries become what's known as the two world superpowers. The reason that the Cold War started was that they have two very different ideas. They both really raced to try and spread their own ideas. We'll talk more about that later, right? But what you need to write down for this slide is the Iron Curtain. So take a look at this graphic here, right? This line in the orange is what's known as the Iron Curtain, okay? Everything to the right side of the Iron Curtain or to the east are all countries that fell under the control of communism, which was the main system of power in the USSR. So these are all communist countries and they all are allied, right? They all have their allegiance with the USSR. Everything to the west of the line, besides Yugoslavia, everything to the west, right, is independent capitalism and aligned with the United States. So this Iron Curtain, right? It's a metaphor. It wasn't an actual real Iron Curtain, but it was a wall, a metaphorical wall, okay? So not real, right? But it's the idea that these countries, right, are more aligned with the East and with the Soviet Union, and everything to the West is more aligned with capitalism in the United States and the West, okay? So one really important thing to mention is the Truman Doctrine. So we know that our boy, President FDR, died a few months before the end of World War II, and who took over was President Harry Truman. Okay, so he was president in 1945, right? And a few important things that he did besides overseeing the end of the war and allowing us to drop the bombs on Japan, another really important thing that he did was he signed what's called the Truman Doctrine. Okay, so what the Truman Doctrine is it's a piece of paper, right, that basically gives the United States stance on communism. So with the Truman Doctrine, the United States basically said, we are going to stop communism wherever it pops up. This was our way of saying that we don't like communism and we want to stop it wherever it is. Okay. So we're going to talk more later about the reasons why communism and capitalism are so against each other. But all you need to know right now is that they are. Okay. And at this time, Americans did not want communism to spread. So the Truman Doctrine made that a thing, right? So make sure to write that down. It is a doctrine or a document, right, saying that the United States is going to stop communism wherever it is. All right, next thing we need to go over is called the Marshall Plan. So take a look at 1947 is the date. This is 2 years after the end of World War II. So what the Marshall Plan was, right? The United States decided at the end of the war that we were going to help rebuild Europe, right? Because it was essentially destroyed at the end of World War II. Okay? So if you look at all the nations in the gray, those are nations that we helped as a result of the Marshall Plan. We gave them money, we gave them aid, we gave them food. All right? Take a look also, these countries that were not helped. These were all countries, right, that are part of that Iron Curtain, right, or that they're more aligned with the Soviet Union, okay, and all these places aligned with the United States. An interesting one to look at is Spain. Spain at this time is under a fascist government called the Franco government. We won't talk about that, but we had a little bit of beef with Spain and their dictator, all right? Right, but take a look at the nations. And also another interesting thing on this map, take a look at Germany. Okay, so right now Germany is split in two. It's split into East Germany, which is here, and West Germany in the gray here. At the end of the war, Germany was split into 4 parts, and those 4 parts were under control by different allied countries, right? So in the West, 3 different countries, France, England, and the United States, had control over these gray areas, and the USSR, Soviet Union, had control over this white area here, right? So even Germany itself is split between East and West, or different areas of influence, okay? The Marshall Plan, right? This was a plan the United States created in order to help out these countries in the gray after the end of the war. And this kind of solidified who was allied with the U.S. and who was allied with the Soviets. Okay, so here's another picture about the Marshall Plan. All right, so you could see that on this side, right, everything's kind of leveled. These buildings are kind of blown up, right, as a result of the war. And we see only a few years later, this is 1947 and 1945, okay, we see that this is the same exact city, but it's being rebuilt as a result from materials and money coming in from the United States. Places in the Eastern Bloc, which is what all the countries in the to the east of the Iron Curtain are called, did not have this type of aid. So they were usually poorer than countries that were helped by the United States. All right. And then we got to talk about NATO and the Warsaw Pact. Okay. So NATO stands for North Atlantic Trade Organization. Sorry, not North Atlantic Trade Organization. It's North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Okay. So what NATO did, it was allied all of these countries you see here in the yellow with the United States, right? This is what we like to call the West. All right. So all of these places were allied with each other, right? Take a look at Spain again. Also joined in 1975. That's when the Francoist regime was toppled, right? And then, sorry. Then you take a look over here in the pink. We have the opposite of that, right? Or the Warsaw Pact. Warsaw is the capital of Poland. All of these countries here, right, in the pink, these are allied with the USSR. So as you can see here, right, we have 2 opposing kinds of organizations, right, or kinds of powers that are allied with each other, right? We have those in the West and those in the East. And this split here, right, is going to kind of outline what these different countries, what they want, what they're going to be doing for the next few years. The Cold War goes from the end of World War II all the way up until the 90s. Okay, so this is a long time that these 2 halves, right, are kind of opposites or against each other. Okay, so the question that we're going to be answering in our next lesson is, why did the Cold War start, right? So for this lesson, right, we talked a lot about what happened, what went down, right? Next lesson, we're going to be talking about why did it happen in the first place, okay? Feel free to go back, pause, take any notes. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'll see you guys soon.